intelligently leveraging your data? Why is it okay to shift right as part of your testing strategy? And we have John Szymanski with us, coming directly from Maryland today. John, great to have you with us. John is the Vice President of Software Engineering and QA at Beacon Street Services. John has over 25 years of experience in software engineering, managing and leading both development and testing teams. He has worked for large billion-dollar companies as well as consulting with startups as they build out their technology stacks from scratch. Regardless of his title or role, his passion has always been focused on quality. He recently finished the process of building an all-new QA team with heavy focus on automated testing and CI/CD. He's currently working on software architecture initiatives and new features development. John, pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for sharing your expertise with our global audience today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose, and I'm glad to be here. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about really data. And what we're going to talk about is a journey that I've had over the last couple of years. And hopefully that you get a lot out of this. I mean, the whole point is to kind of give you some practical experiences and share those with you. So here we go. So a little bit about me, 25 years plus in the industry. Currently, I'm part of Beacon Street Services, and that's a services company that is in the business of supporting affiliates. So we are a services group that supports other businesses, and these businesses are generating, more than $500 million, probably close to $1 billion this year in revenue. So pretty big companies. I do like to blog on the side, although honestly I haven't done that in quite a while, so don't hold me to that. So what I'd really want to cover today is give you some background on our systems, some things that we went through on our journey in the last year and a half. I want to talk about the challenges and the risks that we ran into. And I really want to focus on kind of one strategy that was very helpful to us and something that has been really kind of, I'm not going to say life-changing, but has really made a difference in how we operate our business. And then I do want to walk through some real use cases, because I think the benefit is actually seeing how we applied the strategy in our business. It's very important. So just to start with some background, I'll spend a few slides going through this. So we built our system from scratch back in 2014 to 2016. And at that time, we were really just supporting one company, one brand. We then started to acquire other companies and affiliates and brands. And so from 2016 to 18, we really moved our system into a multi-tenant structure, okay? At that point, we also added a DevOps team that was really focused on that, which was very helpful. And then in the mid-2019 timeframe, we became a true services company because we were supporting all of these different affiliates. We weren't just supporting one anymore. And at that point, we added a QA team. But 5 years later, so we were a little bit behind the curve on that. And so what I'm going to talk about are some of the strategies and some of the things that we did really focused around quality and quality assurance. So just really quickly, our technical architecture, pretty standard sort of stuff, heavy into Java and Node. Most of our systems are cloud-based, so we're all into AWS, Azure, Salesforce, that's our CRM. We use lots of different databases, RDS, Dynamo, Firebase, Snowflake, and then we have some reporting tools, but pretty standard structure here. So to give you a flavor of what we do and how we do it, just a little bit about what Beacon Street Services does. So as a support services company, we support businesses that deliver subscription-based publications of financial information and software. So what does that mean? So we're supporting businesses that are subscription-based. So there's a lot of email. There's email for marketing. We have a CRM that we have to maintain and support. Certainly we have billing systems and operations, so we support that. And then the subscription fulfillment. So again, a lot of emails, text messaging, and website support. So those are kind of the technical areas that we have to support. In 2019, I was charged with building a QA team from scratch. And so doing so, we had responsibility for testing. We had to build a strategy around our quality. We had to document system functionality and test cases. We had to establish regression and smoke tests. And really my focus coming into this as an engineer is let's see what we can do from an automated perspective. That was really key to us. And then obviously we had to assess quality. That was very important, is how do we assess and report on the quality of our systems and our processes. So we built this automation framework. That was great. Pretty standard stuff again. We're using BDD and Selenium and POM and TestNG and Cucumber and Selenium and all of that. So this is pretty standard. And so when we looked at the challenges of our system, the thing was that Salesforce is pretty large and complex, gives you a lot of flexibility. And so the way we structured Salesforce at the time was very batch heavy. So we had over 50 batch jobs that were running out of Salesforce. We had a mix of monolithic and microservices. We had 20 plus Java jobs that we would run. We had varied interconnected technologies, and we were really moving or trying to move more towards the microservices side. So we had a lot of lambdas and step functions and data streams. These are AWS things that are supporting serverless. So pretty complicated system that we had, and a very large mix of batch jobs mixed in with real-time processing. So batch heavy, job heavy. Serverless is easy to maintain code, but it can be harder to test. You really have to have a good strategy about how to test that. The other challenge that we ran into, and I'm sure others have run into this as well, is our environments. So generally you have, development environments, test environments, staging environments, production environments. And in our case, we really only had a test in a production environment, which wasn't great. That was pretty difficult to deal with. And again, the complexity of our systems between the legacy debt, moving to microservices, and just all the different third-party cloud apps, multiple databases, we had things kind of all over the place in terms of the system complexity. From an environment perspective, what we had was, Dev and QA shared the test environment, and we were stepping on each other's toes. That wasn't great. We still are that way today. And our test and our production environment data is not completely mirrored. So a lot of times the things we were testing in the test environment weren't really the same configuration as how they were in production, and that caused us problems in our assessment of quality and our ability to test. And again, with the complexity we had, some features were not easy to test or maintain in our system. So as the head of QA and engineering, so I had to say, okay, well, what is our test strategy? We wanted to automate. We wanted to build out CI and CD. Well, really, we only focused on CI. We didn't do a lot of CD. We wanted to build confidence in our releases. We wanted to reduce risks. We wanted to harden our processes, improve our test data management. I think yesterday, if you attended those sessions, you heard a little bit about managing test data and how important that test data or really data itself is to your processes. And we also wanted to drive quality ownership across the technology team. It wasn't just the QA team's job to drive quality. It was everybody's job to drive that quality ownership. That was important to us. But really from us and what we heard from our affiliates, because again, as a services company that is supporting the businesses, their main concern was they just wanted confidence in their releases. They just wanted to know things were going to work. So looking at the QA considerations, we said, how can we get started quickly with QA? How can we catch up with development, because we were 5 years behind the ball there? How can we make an immediate impact and show value? And that was important to us. We wanted to show value as QA to the organization because, again, we were building this from scratch. So we looked at our plan and we said, okay, well, short-term and intermediate tactics, what can we do? So the first thing we said is we built this automation framework, we have this infrastructure, let's increase the amount of testing we can do, the amount of coverage we can do, and the amount of automated coverage we can do. So that was number one. Let's just increase our coverage, all right? Let's give people greater confidence that we're testing as many things as we can test. And so we looked at that and we figured we could probably get about 70% coverage and automation of all of our test cases after about 1 year. That was our goal. Let's get 70% coverage and automation. You wouldn't ever go to 100% because there are just some things that you wouldn't automate, and there's certain things you wouldn't test or cover, and that's okay, right? You're never going to get to 100%, and there's good reasons for that. The other thing we said is maybe let's focus on production. You know, our environments aren't quite in sync. You know, maybe there's things we can do in production that we can't do in tests. Maybe there's some jobs that run in production that don't run in tests because of, you know, just the situation, maybe the data. So maybe let's spend some time looking at production, maybe testing in production, maybe evaluating production, and you know, maybe that will help us get a little further along. Okay. And when we looked at that, we said, well, you know, maybe we could spend about 2 weeks looking at that, figuring out how to set up maybe some testing in production, and we'll get some bang for our buck doing that. So that was another way of approaching the problem. So just to give you a little bit of a refresher here. So when I talk about data and shifting right, some people may not understand what I'm really talking about. Let me kind of explain to you a little bit about the quality continuum and the quality mindset and what it means in terms of upstream, downstream, and these concepts that we're here to talk about today. So when you look at the QA continuum, you've got quality engineering on the left, and you've got quality control on the right, okay? Quality engineering on the left is what we consider upstream activities, okay? So when you look at upstream activities, you're looking at things like automation. You're looking at things that will improve your processes. You're looking at CI/CD, right? So continuous integration, continuous deployments. You're looking at roles of, let's say, SDETs, which are your software developers in tests. So your software development engineer in tests. So these are QA people, but they're QA people that are more on the development side, that are building things. And then you're looking at test-driven development. You're looking at infrastructure, and you're looking at, you know, strengthening your processes. And then as you move across the software development lifecycle, you get to the point where you release your code, and then now you actually have running code in your production systems, and these are the downstream components, the quality control. This is where you find issues. This is where you find problems in production. You have to think about, you know, bug detection, recidivism, things like that. Finding issues at the end of the continuum is much more costly than finding them in the beginning, where you can fix them quickly. Okay, so this is the continuum: quality engineering, quality control. And just a quick refresher, we just talked about quality assurance is really focused on prevention. Quality control is really focused on detection, right? And you want to spend as much time in the prevention side. This is where we get agile and these process-driven sort of methodologies. It's always good to spend more time there. So if you go back and you look at the previous bullet we talked about, our affiliates wanted greater confidence in releases. This is what they asked for. And really what it came down to, they kept saying to us, listen, we just want to trust the data. We just want to know things are working and they're working correctly. And so the aha moment for us was, or really for me, you know, and a few people that I was working with at the time, was, you know, given our situation, we can't test everything. We don't have parity in our systems. We don't know what we don't know. And we just had this aha moment. We said, hey, we can shift some of our focus downstream, more towards the quality control side, and really focus on our data. The issue was the data. Like, how can we focus and assess our data in production to help us find things that we were missing in our testing? Okay, and that was a great moment. So going back to the continuum, when you look at it, the upstream activities we talked about, that's the shift left. The downstream activities is what we it's what we consider shifting right. Okay, again, it's more costly to shift right. It's not something you want to do as your primary strategy, but it is something to consider. So the caveat is shifting left should always be your priority. That should always be important and the first thing you look at. But we can still take a holistic approach, and it is not an either or proposition. It really isn't, right? You can do both. It's just a question of what that mixture looks like. So just to kind of give you a visual, let's say your goal is to be healthy, and you must have multiple approaches to that, right? It's not just one approach. So here's the visual for you, right? You're gonna be healthy. You want to be fit. You've got exercise. You got the physical. You've got food and what you bring into your body, and then you've got your mental components. You know, you need your rest and your meditation and so forth. So all of these are important, right? It's not an either or. And so I just want to put this visual into your head here. So when we went back and looked at our continuum and we said, hey, you know, how do we want to approach this in terms of percentages? The way that I broke it down in my team is I said, well, let's continue to spend, you know, a good strong 20% of our time on the pure quality engineering components, right? So the designing, the architecture, the templates, the processes, the CI/CD, and then let's spend about 70% of our time actually testing, because we were at this point building a QA team. We needed to test, so we did that. And then I said, let's spend about 10% in what we call inspection, right? And this is where we get into that shift right mentality. Okay, we want to do some of that. And this is also what I consider, you know, beyond test case execution, right? We're not running tests in production. We're doing something a little different. We're inspecting the data, we're assessing the data, and we're hoping to prove that there's confidence and trust in the data. Okay, so the things we would do, we would ask questions like, you know, if your customer service, we refund a customer for credit, you know, did we update the customer's total credit balance? You know, is that correct? Can they see it? Can they know what's in their account? If we're running jobs, let's say a customer paid after a credit card error, we took away their access when it failed, and when their credit card processed, we gave access back to the website. These are the kinds of questions we would ask. Are we doing these things correctly? And so shifting right became a very, very important part of our solution. And we call that DQR. So DQR stands for data quality reporting. Okay, that's what we called it. And we built a strategy specifically around data quality reporting. So what we would do is we would execute reports and queries against our production data warehouse. And there we would assess the end results of business processes. That's what we were doing. We were saying, we know the end result of a process needs to be this. Let's validate it, and let's validate it in production. It was very important to us. So we took information, input from subject matter experts, from our engineering team, from support tickets, from our customer service team, and we defined a set of rules. And based on those rules, those business rules, we built, initially we built 30 reports over 1 month. And when we ran those reports, we actually scheduled them as alerts. We identified 20 plus issues not found in testing alone. Okay, so just looking at the business rules and the end state of the data, we found 20 plus issues that we weren't finding in our test cases. Okay, now caveat to this is this approach does depend on the state of your data. So we have a pretty solid data warehouse. We have a master data management approach. So we're pretty solid in the data that we have, and that's important to have this work. So I'm going to give you another visual. Okay, so car example. So when we think about data quality reporting, okay, this is the visual I want to put into your head. When you build a car, you have things like your tires and your suspension, right? You've got your steering mechanisms, you've got your dashboard, you've got your electronics, you've got your transmission, you've got all these components of your car. And these are being built and they are being tested individually. So this would be kind of your unit tests, maybe some integration tests and some functional tests, but these things are being built along the way. Then you get to a point you actually build a car, right? So you got your new car, it's been tested all the way, your car is built and your car is sold. And I do have a little caveat down here, my apologies, I did draw this picture, it's not the greatest thing, so I'm sorry for that. But then 2 years later, you bring it to the emission station, you get a little piece of paper. I actually have one now for getting my car inspected next month. So you have the emissions inspection every couple of years, you bring it to the emission station, you plug in your car, and it actually runs through a set of tests. And you get this feedback that says pass or fail, right? So to me, that's kind of what DQR is, right? We've already built the car. There's nothing we're really going to do about that right now. We're in production, we're running these processes, these systems, these jobs, and what we're really doing is looking at the data and saying, are we running okay? Did we pass or did we fail? It's a lot of what we do. So simple view of our data. We get a lot of data coming into our database. All of our data goes into Snowflake. It's all raw data. That's our master data management approach. Yours could be different, but again, it depends on where your data is. And then what we do, our kind of tool of choice is a tool called Looker. So it's a BI software platform, explore, analyze, report. It's ad hoc reporting, advanced reporting, it's APIs galore. It's a lot like Business Objects or Domo or Click or Tableau or any of those tools. It really doesn't matter what tool you use, but our tool is Looker. I really, really like it. I really like Snowflake. It's made my life so much easier, and it's been working well for us. The other thing about Looker too is we use Looker for everything. It doesn't matter. We use it for our end user reporting. We use it for our internal reporting. We run reports against Jira and for internal reporting and analysis. We use Looker for that. We use Looker for our test case results and processing and our metrics there. So we use it for everything. It's really a great tool. And just a quick, again, it doesn't matter what the tool is, but Looker is pretty solid. Allows data sources, filters, visualization, data results. It's very, very easy to use. I spent a lot of time in a prior, prior job using Business Objects. That was fine. It worked well. Universes were a little tricky at the time, but Looker has really worked well for us. So the next two slides, I just want to kind of walk through what it takes to set up the data quality reporting strategy. Okay, what does it actually look like, and what do you actually do? Okay, so step number one, okay, identify the areas of concern and your priorities. Okay, for us being a subscription-based business where we're supporting those businesses, what we do is we really focus on the payment processing, right, collecting payments, and we also spend a lot of time on credits and refunds and kind of the opposite of that, right, because a lot of people will purchase. There's a 60-day, 30-day money-back guarantee. Sometimes it's cash, sometimes it's credit, but there's a lot of refunds coming back and forth. We really wanted to focus our priorities around payment processing and refunds. Those were big for us, okay? So identify your areas of concern. Second, define your data rules and your queries. Okay, what are the most important things around your areas of concern? Define what those data or those business rules are, and come up with some basic queries of things that you want to address, that you want to know about in your production environment. So that's number two. Number three, document them as test cases. Treat these as your QA team test cases. Document what you're doing and how you're doing it, because you may want to go back and adjust those later, and that's pretty important. Step two, once you've done those first three things, the next three things you want to do is you want to build your reports and queries. So go into your tool, whether it's Looker or whatever tool you have, Business Objects, Click, whatever. Build your reports, test your reports, and then schedule your reports. So again, we treat these reports as kind of like checks on the system, and we actually set them up as alerts. So if something happens, we want to know that something is either working or not working, okay? So if you look here, this is what it looks like in our test rail folder. This test rail is our test case management system. We basically built test cases, we identify them by titles, and then we actually have a note that they're either scheduled as an alert or not. Sometimes we just run them daily just as informational. So we treat them as test cases, and this is what it looks like in the Looker folder. So pretty much the same thing. We built them in Looker, and then we document them in our test case system. So we've got about 10 minutes. What I want to do now is kind of go through our use cases and why this has been so impactful to us, why it's been so important to us, and then actually show you specific examples of things that we did with data quality reporting, okay? So our first example, we're going to talk about payment failures where we should remove access for the user to the website. So they missed a payment for their subscription, they don't get access to the website anymore, okay? When you look at how we structure our systems, how we actually provide invoicing, payment, access, all that, it's really 5 jobs, okay? We generate an invoice. From there, we go into a post-invoice job. Then we have a payment job. Then there might be a payment error in this case, and then we have a status job. And then we have the ability to give or remove access to the website. So it's really 5 jobs that are running in sequence here. The thing that's hard for us is when you look at the payment job here, there's so much that can go into the payment processing, okay? Things we have to look at include, invoices posted, the payment type, is it a credit card or a check? What's the bill type? Is this a new sale? Is this a maintenance fee? Is it a renewal? Is it a recurring charge? Are they paying on installment? Are they paying it full? Is there credit with the customer? Do they have a payment method or a card on file? Did we update the balances correctly? Did we send an email or not? So these are things that are important to assess, and it's really hard to test these. If we had to go through and test every single one of these use cases individually, and we try to cover most of these, it's really hard to make sure we cover every single scenario, okay? If a payment fails, as you see here, a payment fails, then we go into a status job. And so things we need to look at are, did we put the subscription into expired state or suspended state? Did we check that there was an installment? Did we move them into bill suspend? There's a lot of things we can do here. So again, we need to test all of these things, but it's very difficult to do every single scenario and then decide whether we remove their fulfillment or not. So we took this example, we said, okay, let's build a data quality report around it. So we did that. So the query that we built, as we said, we want to know in this process, were there any payment errors? And were those payment errors on invoices in the last 30 days? And then we want to look at the subscription and say, is the subscription status still equal to active? And is the customer still receiving access to the website? Okay, so this would be a case where we want to know, based on a payment error, that we truly took away access for that customer, because that's really the intended business rule, right? You don't make the payment, you don't get access. So we're looking for a exception to that business rule. So this would be the query for the data quality report. We built the data quality report. We actually built 2 reports, one for installment-based payments and one for non-installment-based payments. And this is kind of what it looks like. I mean, it's really this simple. We built a query and we said, what's the balance? What's the due date? What's the status? What's the type? Is it a condition where they should have had their access removed, but they didn't get it removed? Okay, so this is the basic query. We built it into Looker. We set it up to be a daily run, and we basically are looking to see if any results come back. If any results come back, then we have an issue. We have a data issue. Okay, and so you can see here we set it up to schedule to run daily and only give us a report if there are results. We just want to know if there's results on the negative use case here. And here's an example where it happened. So we had 2 subscriptions come back that met this criteria. We'll call that a hit. And so we get this report in the morning and we go and we investigate those subscriptions, and then we try to figure out, did we miss something in testing? Is it a process issue? Is it a bug? We don't know. In a lot of cases, in some cases, it could be a timing issue. Maybe the job ran too late, too long, or it got stuck, and therefore we ran the report and we didn't get the intended result we wanted, but maybe it's a timing issue. But we need to go investigate. We need to go and look and see why these 2 subscriptions did not go into basically suspend mode, okay? So here's an example. We set it up to run, it's on a schedule. We get 2 records back that we need to investigate. So let's go and look at use case 2. So use case 2 is really kind of the opposite of that. So let's say we took away access from a customer, then they paid. Now we should restore their access to the website. Okay, so this is the inverse of what we just went through. So in this case, we're looking for, again, payment success in the last 30 days on an invoice, where the subscription now is in bill suspend, but it really should be active because we should have given access back to the customer. It's the same thing, right? We built 2 reports, one on installments, one on non-installments. We then set up the query. Query is very similar. It's just kind of the inverse. And in this case, we run the report. We wouldn't get alerted because there's no results on this one, but if I run it manually, I would see there's no results. And this means everything's working correctly. I don't have to worry. There's no alert. There's nothing to investigate. The process is working smoothly. Okay. Use case 3. So this was a very important one to us as well. So this is a sequence diagram, and this really kind of goes through a process where we have order forms where people can subscribe. We send this information to a third-party application called Zora, which is our billing system, which then sends information to Salesforce, and then we have a job that basically syncs data back to both systems, and then we can do reporting from there. Now, what we found is that in many cases, there were failure points within the syncing process, okay? So this is really about syncing data back and forth between these systems. And if you look at these asterisks here, these are processes we have no visibility into. These are third-party cloud apps. We don't control these, but these are things that are important to the process. And typically when we have failures, it either fails at this point or this point here, point number 2. And so we wanted to build a data quality report around those difficult areas. So what we decided to do was put an alert right after that second process, okay? So in this case, what we wanted to know was, are there current subscriptions that within the last 4 hours did not sync correctly? We were missing a brand ID or an invoice transaction type. These are things that sync back into the Salesforce system. And if those values are missing, we can't do accurate reporting, okay? So this is one way we trigger an alert on a failed sync process, okay? Again, we build a report, we build it in Looker, we build it and document it in TestRail. And the thing about Looker that's really cool is it can be as simple as just drop downs, build your queries, dates, times, Booleans, things like that. But you can also do custom SQL. So in this case, we actually built just a quick little filter, custom SQL, and we're looking for these values that are missing. Okay, so these are null values, and that means the sync process failed. And again, we run the report, and we did this one manually. There's no results. It means sync is working correctly, so we're not worried about this. But if there were results coming back, then yes, we would see a list of data. We would get an alert, and we would go investigate. And there's a lot of things that data quality reporting can do. We use it for things like, are we missing data values? Are we missing fields? Like anytime we expect the data to be full and complete in production and there's missing data, we get an alert on that. It's just a simple query, we get an alert. We can do it for potential fraud. We have queries for that. We have it for failed jobs and data streams and processes, right? So we just set up these queries and say, we expect these things to be existing in production. And when they're not there, we get an alert, and then we go investigate and we try to figure out what's going on. And again, we only get alerts, we set them up if there's a problem, right? If things are running properly, we don't get an email, we don't get an alert, we just know things are working correctly. So today, as of April 21st, we have 76 data quality reports that we built. This is probably over the course of it's over a year. 52 of those data quality reports are set up as alerts, so we will get emails if there's a use case that fails. 33 of the 52 are actually tied to our alerting system, which is VictorOps, which will actually page development and say, hey, go take a look at this. One thing we found, which has been very cool, is we build these data quality reports because we have concerns. If we do get alerts and we investigate, we'll go take a look at them. Generally, once we've fixed the root cause of those issues, very rarely do we see the alerts again. So although we have 76 data quality reports running, 52 as alerts, I don't really get alerts that often. Once we fix the root cause, things pretty much work pretty smoothly. So I'm not worried about lingering effects. That's the general case, and it just kind of gives us a sense of comfort, and it really allows us to trust the data, right? To know that our things are working correctly. So wrapping up here in the next 2 minutes, just hit the high points here, right? So we talk about shifting right. Shifting right is the quality control side of the continuum. It is more costly to find issues in production. We know that. But I want to be very clear that quality control is not a bad word, right? People give it a bad rap. Quality control is important. I think it's definitely part of your strategy and your solution. It really comes down to how much time do you want to put into that, right? Again, for us, I'm going to say it's like 10%, right? I feel that's very important to us. We still spend most of our effort on the quality engineering side, which is the process side, but quality control is not a bad word. And the reason I say that is executives will focus on the data, right? It's all about data now. We should also focus on the data, whether we're in engineering, QA, project managers, whoever it may be, we all need to focus on the data. When we can't control areas in the early stages, like for our example, we have a test environment that doesn't mirror production exactly, and we have concerns about that. We can't control that right now. We have an issue with our environments, but we can shift right, we can shift downstream, and we can have a strategy to mitigate those risks. Very important. And at least a little. Again, we know it's cost here, but we can do this a little. Data quality reporting, bottom line, it provides our customers with the ability to say we have confidence in our data. It's very important to us. And it's a quick win. If you remember the graph, it was going to take us a year to build out automation coverage on our test cases. We built our first reports and had them out the door in 2 weeks, and we had 30 reports in a month, and we were already making a huge impact. It was a quick win. Leverage the tools you have. It doesn't matter what reporting tool you have, leverage what you have. Focus some time on data quality, not just on test execution. We talked about that. Think beyond just running test cases. Assessing data is part of everyone's job. And I think you'll find that data quality reporting is, it's been a big win for us, and hopefully, you can take some of this and apply it to your environment, and hopefully you can get some quick wins there as well. So I want to thank you for your time. We're right on schedule, and I think we're going to get ready for the Q&A. Here is my contact information here. Very happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. I use it quite extensively. And at this point, I think we're ready for some questions.
John, thank you very much for an outstanding presentation, really highlighting how quickly you can become a world-class organization if you focus from the outset on doing the right things and getting the right results. John, could I ask you to stop showing that presentation? Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. We've already got some good questions coming in. Please don't hesitate to continue to send them in. We will ask them as we go forward. And John, one question that seems to come up quite a bit is, you've obviously identified that you were quite behind the curve when this whole process initially started, and that you were brought in to kind of move that bell curve forward very quickly. What, as you understand it, when you were kind of having the discussions with senior management and looking at what they were achieving, what led them to the position that they needed to implement this for their organization?
What led them to want to implement like the data quality strategy?
Yeah, what led them to understand that it was something that was important for their business and could get them to where they wanted to be ultimately?
Yeah, so I think the way I'll phrase this question is like this. So it is something that internally as an engineering team, we felt we needed to do because we were so far behind, right? We knew we wanted to build automation test cases and build that automation into our CI/CD pipeline, which we did, but it was going to take us a year. Like our plan was to do this over the course of a year. We knew upper management was going to come back and say we need quicker wins. We need to know that there's confidence in our systems running. So data quality was really the way to get us a quick win and a continuous win, right? We still do it today. We keep building, probably 1 or 2 data quality reports every month. What it was important for us to do was to share and kind of promote this internally. So as an engineering team, we went to our affiliates and we said, listen, this is a process that we're implementing. We think it's very important. We think we're going to get a very, very big win out of this and a very quick return on investment. And, we promoted it. We told upper management. I run a monthly QA results session for all the engineering team and all of upper management, okay? And what we do is we go over the results of testing and we go over the results of our DQR reporting. And we discuss our successes and our pain points, and we end with a lot of feedback from anyone who wants to have input. So the thing is, we don't sit around and wait for someone to ask us how things are going. We're going to put it right in front of you. We do these 30-minute sessions once a month. We go over all the data. We go over the results. There's a lot of back and forth. And so, we're promoting ourselves. We're pushing the data in front of them and saying, here, look at what we did. Look how important this is, and look how well things are running. And we also show them the cases where we've implemented data quality reporting around issues that we were having. And then soon after, we see that those alerts, they go away, right? So we've actually fixed core problems in our system. So a lot of it is we're promoting ourselves. So I look at when we do these QA result sessions with everyone, we open it to anyone who wants to attend, okay? What we really say is, listen, at the beginning of this process in data quality reporting, we said, here's what we will do. Okay, there's basically 4 things we did. We said, here's what we're gonna do. This is why we're gonna do it. This is how we're going to do it, and this is when we're going to do it. And so what we did very early on in that first month when we were building these reports is we said, we're laying the foundation with our stakeholders, and we're going to basically tell you these things, and we're going to measure our results against what we just told you we're going to do. So we built a strategy, we promoted the strategy, we continue to promote it on these monthly sessions, and we really engage everyone across the teams, including upper management, with how important this is and why it's a great return on investment.
Now, as you alluded to during your presentation, that right shift strategy isn't always appreciated at a senior level, because it's a specific strategic choice, and it costs. There's a definite percentage to it that you wouldn't get by maybe focusing more on the left or fixing a little bit around center. How did you initially get buy-in at a strategic level to say this is the right thing for us to do and that's the right percentage for us to focus on?
Yeah, I think, let's talk a little bit about the percentage, right? So most people are going to tell you, you want to always shift left, right? You want to be very solid in your upstream processes, right? And I don't discount that. I think that is hugely important. So as I said, we spend, my QA team, myself, we spend certainly, I would say, 20% of our time on those activities. QA stays abreast of everything that's going on, from the grooming sessions to the intake of the backlog. Once a JIRA ticket, in our case we use JIRA, once that's picked up by engineering, we do a kind of an architecture design review session with QA. We actually start working on the test cases before we even get the code, right? So we're already assigning QA to tasks up front to stay very heavily involved with the the understanding of the design, the architecture. So that is critical. Like, if we don't do that and then we get code into the test environment that we don't understand, it's just a waste of time, right? Where there's too much back and forth. So, so our mix, we said 20% of those front activities, those upstream activities, we do 70% testing, and we just 10% seemed to be the sweet spot to us in terms of what we could put into production level inspection that will give us the greatest ROI without spending too much time on the back end, because again, it's more costly to do so. So that was the right mix for us. I think it depends on your situation in your company. If you have really solid environments where everything is automated and mirrors each other from test to staging to production, and you have better confidence in that, maybe you spend 5%. Or maybe if you're in a worse shape than we are, maybe you spend 20% on those back-end activities. There is a cost to it, and I don't want to belittle that. There's a cost to doing it at the very end, but I think you can find that sweet spot and show that there's actual tremendous ROI if you do it correctly.
And at a sort of a board level, did you have to find a specific sponsor who was supporting what you did, or did you get a general cohesive view in terms of, yes, it's right, everybody's on board, or was it one or two individuals that were really pushing it?
Yeah, I think for us, it was a group thing, right? So from a technology team perspective, we had complete buy-in across our entire technical organization. Okay, so there was no issue there. What really made this happen for us was the same time that we were building out this data quality approach, we were restructuring our entire data infrastructure. So we had a new VP come in over who's managing the data aspects of our business, so the BI and the data, and they implemented the master data management approach, right? And that was transformational for us, because once that MDM was implemented in our organization, that made the ability for us to do DQR almost like, it was like a no-brainer, right? It was so easy for us to access the production data in a raw state to do whatever we wanted with that data. So we had a new BI VP come in who was transformational, who worked really well with engineering. We were all on the same page all the way up to our CTO, and it was really easy to promote that then to the affiliates and say, we have a plan, we know what we're doing, it's a great plan, we're going to share with you everything we're going to do from beginning to end, here's our return on investment. So it was very, very, I would say there was no pushback, right? It was, everyone was kind of on board to move forward with that.
Fantastic. And John, we could probably talk about this for a lot longer. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our scheduling period for this session. John, if anybody wants to catch up with you, I presume LinkedIn, social media, following up after that would be great. And you'd welcome that outreach. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to go.
Fantastic. So, John, thank you so much for a really exciting and insightful presentation. We look forward to seeing you again in the series. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, John. So, ladies and gentlemen, John Szymanski giving a truly wonderful presentation on how you go from being at the back of the pack to the front of the pack by focusing on the things which are really important for the business and taking the risk. As John pointed out, sometimes going left is not always the right way to go. Now, up next, I'm really pleased to announce a world-class speaker joining us next, Magnus Penkar, the CEO and founder of Innovation 360, who will be looking at playing bold, how to win the business game. In this session, you'll get insights on how to get back in the game and win it through playing and building. Now, listen to this award-winning author and thought leader. Magnus works with some of the most well-established businesses and on the planet, and a number of the leaders that you see regularly around the world. He will explain how to remove blockers, activate amplifiers, and ensure you're aligning for constantly riding and jumping those S-curves. So join us back here at the top of the hour to get some great insights from Magnus, and we look forward to seeing you then. Okay, everybody, look forward to seeing you then. Take care. Bye-bye.